Okay, so I think we'll make a start. A very warm welcome to everybody for the second of our Lunchtime Learning series of lectures for our Level 7 Postgraduate Diploma in HR Management. Today's lecture, How Do Organisations Avoid Employment Tribunals, is being delivered by Vikki, Principal Lecturer and Head of Department of Business in the University's Business School. My name is Paula Harrison and I'm the coordinator of University Centre Telford, which is one of 3 regional learning centres of the University of Wolverhampton. I'm joined today by Vikki and also by my colleague Trevor Humphreys, who is the coordinator of our Stafford Centre. So just before I introduce Vikki formally and hand over to her, I just wanted to explain that there will be an opportunity to ask questions both during the lecture and at the end of the lecture via the Q&A button. Now, if you're using a laptop or a desktop device, the icon is on the bottom of your screen in the middle. And if you're using a mobile, it will be in the top right-hand corner. So we're delighted to welcome Vikki for her lecture today. Vikki lectures on the Level 7 Postgraduate Diploma in HR Management, which is offered at our City campus in Wolverhampton, as well as at our centre at Southwater in Telford. And it will also be offered in Stafford from January 2021. Vikki is an experienced senior lecturer with a demonstrated history of working in the higher education industry. She is skilled in conflict management, customer relationship management and legal writing. She's a strong education professional with an MA HRM focused in human resource management from the University of Wolverhampton. Vikki teaches in a variety of areas, including elements of human resource management, employment law, employment relations and general business. So a warm welcome to Vikki today, and I'll hand over to you now. Thank you, Vikki.
Thank you, Paula. So welcome everybody and thank you for joining me in your lunchtime. As Paula said, this is literally an hour session on how organisations can avoid employment tribunals, or if even they can. If you do join us on the programme, this is actually from one of the lectures that I deliver on the programme, which is Key Issues in Employee Relations and Employment Law, and runs on the Postgraduate Diploma and the MA in HR Management and its CIPD award. A little bit about me first. Paula has obviously already introduced me. I'm not a HE career specialist. I didn't start in higher education as the starting point of my career. I actually started in banking and I escaped just before the financial crash, I think, fortunately. I moved into business development and customer relationship management up until I decided a little bit later in life, perhaps, that I was going to go back to university and study law. Primarily because I'd had my 3rd child and I was commuting to Nottingham and it was wearing me down, so I thought I would re-educate completely. So I did a undergraduate degree in law, and was convinced when I started I was going to be a solicitor, but life has other plans. I fell in love with employment law, so started consulting independently in the subject, and the employment law side just completely grabbed me, but more from an employee relations perspective, you know, how we can positively manage the employment relationship. And I've been in so many employment tribunals that you almost feel frustrated that actually we didn't ever need to get there, and really good HR policies and relationships could ultimately mean that you didn't need to be in the position of litigation. So ultimately what we're looking at today is, can positive employee relations actually prevent the need for litigation? So I've kind of jumped ahead, so that's my background. As Paul has already said, my current job role is I'm a principal lecturer, and I've recently been appointed as the head of Department of Business for the Business School in Wolverhampton on City campus. In terms of the course, obviously there is multiple course options because you've got the postgraduate diploma or the Masters in HRM. The CIPD with this are the awarding and professional body. Effectively, when you finish, you have your postgraduate diploma, or you have your master's if you've gone down the route of the master's degree. What happens is the CIPD don't actually do a dual award, so you don't get a CIPD qualification as such. Hang fire and I'll explain a bit more. You get your diploma from the University of Wolverhampton or your master's degree from the University of Wolverhampton. It's the equivalent of the level 7 CIPD qualification, so it's the highest award available via the CIPD. In terms of the qualification, I mean, people sometimes wonder, do I actually need to be doing a level 7 qualification? You know, we see it quite a lot with people who are kind of HR generalists or might specialize in a bit of recruitment, and they might not necessarily be involved in kind of strategy in terms of their organization. But when you kind of look at the actual course itself and the modules, there is literally something for everybody in terms of, you know, we look at recruitment, we look at organizational change, we obviously look at the legal side, you know, we look at lots of things. You know, you can do research opportunities within your own organization, so something that's quite specific to your own organization. So even though you might be thinking, oh, do I need a level 7 qualification, would, you know, a level 5 be enough? Actually, a lot of the time I think kind of go straight in at the top is a really good opportunity. And obviously the opportunity with the CIPD is that when you have completed your course, you can then apply to be a chartered member of the CIPD. And in terms of recruitment, it's a massive thing, because generally any HR job you see advertised these days kind of asks for membership of the CIPD, which is kind of essential. But the higher up in terms of scale you can get within the CIPD, so chartered or in the future fellow, really does help in terms of career prospects and future recruitment. I'll tell you a little bit about the offer at University Centre Telford.
Thank you, Vikki. So as I've explained already, University Centre Telford offers the Level 7 Postgraduate Diploma in HR Management. We're based in the centre of Telford, and we are a regional learning centre. We have a curriculum offer, which you can see there, which includes the course that I've just mentioned and that Vikki teaches on. We also offer the CIM certificate at level 4, which is digital and professional marketing. We offer 2 or 3 education courses for post-compulsory education, and also a BA top-up in special educational needs, disability, family and inclusion. And we host partner courses from Telford and Wrekin Council and from Telford College as well. Staff at the centre offer bespoke information, advice and guidance, both to mature students as well as those who are 16 to 18. We have lots of good relationships with local schools and colleges. We offer business support and host events and offer one-to-one business advice. We have very strong partnerships in the local community and engage in a lot of community engagement events, both large-scale events and local events. We have a very successful programme of public lectures, including these taster lectures, which we're running at the moment, and there'll be another one next week, which is the same time, Wednesday from 1 till 2. Alex Phillips from the business school will talk about how HR can take a lead on driving equality. So if you want to sign up for that, that's available. And we've also got something completely different on zombies coming up as well next Wednesday. And we continually consult to assess and define local demand. So we are constantly in touch with people locally, raising aspirations, finding out what's needed, and we then liaise with faculties within the university and look at current market building activity to expand our course offer. So that's University Centre Telford in the heart of Telford. Thanks, Vikki.
I'll pass over to Trevor now to discuss Stafford. Thanks, Trevor.
No worries, I'll be very quick. We're very similar to Paula over at Stafford, so we're one of the other regional learning centres. Again, based right in the centre of Stafford, next to where the public library is, County Council building, Staff's Place 2A. So again, we do all the same things that Paula talked about over at Telford, and our curriculum offer is based around, again, HR, level 7 diploma in HR management, CIM certificate, professional and digital, is what we're looking to do. And then we also do the foundation degree working with children in primary ed. So they're our main qualifications. Again, like Paula mentioned over at Telford, we run all our activities around these 4 pillars. So public lectures, workshops, we then have our adult short courses, so things like languages, British Sign Language, digital photography, digital media, loads of those sort of courses running. We then have our undergrad, postgrad, CIPD courses, and then also our specialist clinics as well. So we run business startup programs, expert advice, and it's very much local learning for local people that you may not be able to get to any of the other campuses. So the option is you come straight out of work at the end of the day, have a little breather, and then you just relax and come into the centre in Stafford, which hopefully, I say, we'll have all the qualifications running from January. So touch wood, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. So when we talk about employee relations, ultimately we're talking about the relationship that exists between an employer and an employee. And if I was having this lecture session with you in the 1980s, I would be generally talking about that idea of collective relationships, because obviously trade unions were a lot stronger back then than they are now, sadly. But ultimately, when we talk about ER today, then we're talking about this move to an individual relationship, but very much centering around a relationship that's based on trust between the employer and the employee. Ultimately, the CIPD, which is obviously the awarding body for the course, are saying to us that if we can establish an environment where we have really positive employee relations, with good levels of involvement from our employees, employee commitment, and ultimately engagement, we can improve business outcomes. I'm going to throw a question out and just really quickly speed type for me. And Paula, if you could let me know some of the responses. What do you think the purpose is of HRM, or human resource management? What do you believe the purpose of that is?
Okay, I'm looking at the Q&A.
I'm hoping I get a few.
Someone has just asked if we're going to look at delivering the qualification online in the future.
Oh, that's a good question. Can we park that one and I'll come back to that in the end? Thanks,
Vikki. And then unleashing the potential of people to benefit the business.
A good answer. I like that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Any more?
Not yet. Okay. Nothing on the Q&A. That's coming through the chat.
That's fine. So generally speaking, whenever, and I will ask you this question if I have the pleasure of seeing you in my classroom soon, but very much, oh, is there one popping up now?
Yes. Coordinating people and motivating them to benefit business.
Yes. And I love the fact that both of those responses have mentioned business, because sometimes you'll speak to people who are in HR, or in any environment, when you say what is the purpose, and it's very much this idea of it's around people, it's around motivation, it's around engagement, it's around improving well-being, and it's around inclusion, diversity, a harmonious workforce. Yes, it's all of that. And what I'm going to say to you is, but the reason you do all of that as a HR professional is to make the company money. If you're in private sector, if you're public sector, it is slightly different because you're more of a service. But in terms of business, businesses are obviously responsible to their shareholders. So all of these things that we do with HR is ultimately trying to increase the bottom line. And I do struggle with that, but ultimately profit's not a dirty word. I won't get onto sustainability, but I promise if I teach you, I'll rant about it later on. But yeah, it's all of those, but it's recognizing for businesses, we often get questioned as HR professionals over how do we add value as a HR professional to a business, and HR is seen very much as you just spend money, you want to do away days, you want to do costly things that cost money, and you want to do these things to motivate. And it's like, listen to me, yeah, but we do all those things, and if we're allowed to spend money on those things, we will help your bottom line. But very much a lot of the time we find operational managers who kind of don't get the fluffy stuff. So it is about us being fluffy and trying to deliver this, relationship that's a really positive one, but ultimately is still saying that as a strategic HR professional, it's because I've got my eye on the bottom line and I know how to get those things, but at the same time, our staff working together to be able to contribute to that. So one of the ways that we really try and get our staff working is around employee engagement. I won't ask on this one, but what do we mean by engaged? But ultimately, there was a publication in 2009 by MacLeod and Clark, and says that when we're talking about engagement, if managers can achieve an engaged workforce, it'll lead to organisational success and employee well-being. And what was interesting with this report, it was actually commissioned by the government. And you think to yourself, why are the government bothered about whether or not our employees are engaged? Because obviously, from a government point of view, for every business that's making money, so is the government. So there is very much a drive around trying to increase gross domestic product as a whole. So we want our employees in the UK to be engaged, so our businesses succeed. I'm not going to say it's cynical, so but ultimately for the tax system to do well, to be able to pass back and fairer society, but I won't dwell on that today. So when we're looking at engagement, we're talking about the benefit of bringing people together. So when we look at what the principal dimensions of engagement are, loads of studies will suggest that if you have engaged employees, you will have increases in productivity, you'll have increase in profit. If you have engaged employees, they're more likely to come to you with ideas, so you will have innovation. You'll be at the cutting edge of what your business does. Ultimately, if you have engaged employees, your customer satisfaction ratings will go up, and your customers are more likely to stay with you as well. And you might think to yourself, why is that? Well, the reality of the position is that, say for example, in a call center, if you've got somebody who really hates their job, have you ever rung a call center and you think, well, that person doesn't want to be on the phone? And these things actually impact customers. If you have engaged employees, they also have generally lower absence rates, their voluntary turnover, so employee turnover goes down. Sabotage and negative behaviours, that one person who whinges constantly about their job, and then everybody around them who generally might normally be quite engaged actually start listening to the negativity and kind of go at the same time. So actually we want to be able to get an engaged workforce for that reason. But when we look at the cost of sickness, we're talking about this bottom line. You have engaged staff have an average of 2.5 days on the sick per year, compared to 6.2 taken by disengaged staff. So if you're disengaged, you are definitely more likely to get to Friday and think, I don't feel well, or a Monday, it was a bit of a heavy weekend. The reality is, engaged employees, if you wake up with the sniffles one morning, you are more likely to go to work. You probably think, well, what's the link between that and tribunals, which is the point of the conversation today? The reality is, if you have engaged teams, they are more likely to communicate with you if there is a genuine problem, and you're more likely to have resolution, whereas those who are disengaged, if they have an issue that would normally be a grievance situation, they're more likely to leave and then create problems afterwards. So when we look at engagement, we kind of go, what drives engagement? So Holbeach and Matthews in 2012 say, we need to create connection. We need to really feel connected to the organisations that we work for. We want to be proud to work for our organisation. And one of the critical things, and I think for me, as I was an ER specialist, voice is one of the most important. So managers need to be able to listen to employees' views. And that's not only negative views, but when you're getting suggestions from staff on ways to improve things, you need to be listening. And you know what? You can't, with the best will in the world, deliver everything your staff are telling you, but the least you can do is communicate why you can't. You need to be able to treat your staff with as individuals and obviously support them. And you need to be really, really mindful of well-being. we're talking in an environment where we're all sat in the study because we're all working from home, and it's kind of being aware, you know, are we at the moment making touch points with our staff saying, how you doing? I know how isolating it can be. I am the complete extrovert, you've probably gathered that already, and being at home for me for 6 months has been soul destroying. If it wasn't for the team around me, I would really be struggling. In terms of scope, people want to have a job that almost has purpose, and that you give people opportunities to develop. So it really is around establishing that employment relationship that you can have these conversations about what somebody's future looks like. And again, linking back, that comes from treating somebody as an individual and not assuming that everybody has the same needs. So, you know, how else can we drive engagement? So as well as the ones I've discussed previously, that links to the idea of accomplishment, but autonomy. People want to be able to decide how they do the job. You know, micromanagement might work for some, a massive no-no for other people. You know, some people like the idea of set me a task and leave me to get on with it. Variety is another one. Some people will be happy to do the same task over and over and over again, so they're specialist in that and nothing else. Other people would be absolutely bored and therefore disengaged if they don't have a chance to do different things. Feedback, and feedback kind of for me goes in hand with reward and recognition. It is, you know, crucial that we are saying to our employees, you've done a good job, you know, well done. Actually, how did you think? Well, negatively, how did you think that went? So it doesn't have to be spun as a negative that you want to, you know, give criticism, but actually getting into conversations that we're comfortable to have for feedback. Again, massive issue around development. It's not for everybody. Some people don't want to progress, but actually for some people, the opportunity to develop, the opportunity to know that there's promotion prospects in place, all of these things will really help driving engagement. And again, recognition. So I'm going to pass this over to you, and we'll give you a few minutes to throw some suggestions at me. Think about your organisation you currently work for, or one that you're aware of. What do you think your organisation does to measure or improve engagement? And you can answer with this, if you want to, with my organisation doesn't measure engagement, or they measure it with engagement surveys. Happy to discuss whatever you come up with.
While we're waiting, Vikki, just a couple of comments from the last question you asked. Stephanie said HRM is about supporting the business to ensure that employees grow. And another participant said that working with the business to manage human resources effectively, engaging with employees to achieve business aims. So there were just a couple of other comments from.
Thank you. It's really lovely to hear. Thanks for placing your comments. You're right. It is. I think that HR has evolved essentially. That when HR kind of started, it was that old personnel